Hey, welcome back to my channel. I make weekly art tutorials, paint-alongs and vlogs, and in this video I'm going to be sharing the art that I created in 2022. So again, it's like a sketchbook tour, but again it's slightly different because I haven't actually completed a sketchbook, and that's because I tend to work across an array of different sketchbooks at the same time. If you haven't already seen it, I actually created a video where I went through all the art that I created on plein air, on holiday, on location, and if you want to check out that video, then I will link it down below for you because it is a lot of fun, if I do say so myself. As well as that, I've also created a video of my favorite art supplies. So if, like me, you tend to get super curious about what other artists are using, or you want to know more about the supplies that I'm going to mention in this video as well, then be sure to check that one out. I will link everything down below in the description, as well as my last sketchbook tours, and by the nature of this, if I happen to also mention a video that relates to the art, then I will flash up the thumbnail and link it down below for you as well. If I happen to forget something, then please feel free to ask me. I love chatting with you in the comments. But with no further ado, let's start the tour. First off, I want to start with this because I'm pretty sure it's like one of the earliest bits of art that I created in 2022. This was part of a collaboration that I was doing with Archer and Olive, and I absolutely loved it. I had such a good time, and I essentially created an art challenge called Words of Art for Black History Month, during which I was encouraging people to create art based on powerful words from Black women throughout history, and these are kind of the bits of art that I created as a result. The first prompt was never be limited by other people's limited imagination, and this was said by Mae Jemison, who was an astronaut, who was a physician, who was an engineer, and essentially the first African-American woman to travel to space. The next prompt was by Maya Angelou, and it was so hard to pick just one, and I chose try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud, and it's just because with the times that we're living in, it felt so necessary to just be reminded of the power that we have on other people. Third prompt was by Harriet Tubman, and she said, every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember that you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach the stars and change the world. The fourth prompt was by Angela Davis, who said, we must always attempt to lift as we climb, and it just again felt like a really important reminder. And last but not least, it was a quote by Michelle Obama, who said, when they go low, we go high. All these pieces were created using Winsor & Newton gouache on 50% cotton Fabriano watercolour paper. I didn't intend for them to match and to have similar colour schemes and similar themes, but they did. I really wanted it to be uplifting, I wanted it to be positive, I wanted it to be powerful, and this body of work truly holds a very special place in my heart. Next, we have this. And this I initially started in 2019. It's so funny to look back on it because this was my creme de la creme sketchbook. It was my expensive sketchbook. It's a Moleskine watercolor sketchbook. But the other sketchbook that I had was I think Royal and Langnickin £3 sketchbook with over 100 pages. So you can imagine that this sketchbook that at the time was like around £15 and only had like 50-ish pages was super expensive for me. So I only reserved it for like certain special pieces. And this, I remember I was sat on top of Box Hill looking down. This was my view and I just painted it. So I'm not going to show you like the whole sketchbook. We can do like a full tour when the time comes, but I'm going to skip forward because from 2019 all the way to 2022. So you can see that this I did in 3 years, and then once I started getting less precious, more than half of it I have done in a few months. So this first one is a gouache landscape that I did at the beginning of the year while I was thinking about the goals that I had for 2022, and I kind of thought goals, mountain, climbing the mountains, and thus this is what kind of came to me. And it's so funny because most of those goals I haven't achieved. I've achieved a lot this year and it's been an incredible year, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the goals that I set in this video, which I can link for you down below, I did not really achieve. And then the day after that, I did this landscape again with gouache. One of my goals was to do 50 landscape paintings. I don't actually know if I reached that, but that's why they are numbered. One of the things that I did start that's going even better than I could have imagined is a Ko-fi. And this is my equivalent of Patreon, where people can join and take part in monthly art challenges, get access to exclusive videos and other exclusive content, chat with me directly, and so much more. So if you're interested, then be sure to check the link down below in the description. I mention it because a lot of the art that you will see will be from videos that I've created for Ko-fi, and if you don't know what that is, then it wouldn't have made sense. Well, then this was a really fun challenge, which is again another video on YouTube as a time challenge. I'm super curious to know which one of these four is your favorite. So this one was an hour, this was 10 minutes, 1 minute and 5 minutes, and it's so funny because I learned something different from each one. I just found it like a really interesting exercise because I think my favorite, it does tend to change, but it's always been between the 10-minute one and the 5-minute one. And you would think that it would be the 1 hour one, the one that took me the longest, but that's just not the case. And then I just learned so many valuable lessons from doing this time challenge. For one thing, when I first started off and I gave myself an hour, I thought there's no way I will paint for an hour. But I allowed myself the luxury of painting without looking at the timer because I kind of felt that when I finish, I would have loads of time remaining. It's like Parkinson's law. It took me an hour. It really did take me an hour, and then I changed things up for each following one. So that was a lot of fun. Then I did it again, and the reason I did it again is I kind of felt like the pressure of time was getting to me, and I kind of felt like this one I wanted more contrast. This one I wasn't too happy with. I think like this bit here, this one what to me was like a bit of a joke because 1 minute, what can I really do? This one I kind of felt like was really good. I liked the blending that I had done here, but I liked the contrast that I had here. So I wanted to put it all together and without the pressure of time do it again. And I think this took me like half an hour to do on a separate day, and I was a lot happier with the results. And then from there I was like, oh, let me continue. I like doing fruit, and I love this painting. I just really love the playful brush strokes here. So I left space because I wanted to do some more. I just never really got round to it. And then landscape number 3, which I love. I just think is really, really nice. Again with gouache. Landscape number 4 out of 50 with gouache. And this is like definitely interesting. I struggled to do this one a lot more than this one, which is funny because I would have thought this one would be harder. And that's just because I was struggling with knowing how much detail to put. But in the end, I liked it. And then here we go, number 5, number 6, some more gouache landscapes. And at this point, I was really, really enjoying my gouache landscapes. And the key reason that I have to attribute that is like this palette. I love my gouache palette. Like I really, really, really do. I love it because it was just so easy to have this out and ready. I felt really inspired to continue to paint, and I also kind of felt less precious about the paint. And so I just continued and continued and continued. If you're enjoying this video, then don't forget to hit the like button and to consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so that you don't miss any videos. Not only does it make a massive difference to this channel, but it also keeps me going when I'm editing. So thank you so much in advance. And this is Painting of Venice. And this is again based on a picture that I took of my time in Venice. It's also a picture in my reference pack. I love it. It's so lovely to like look back and get memories of your time in a nice place. That's how I feel when I see pictures that I've painted from my own references. Then this is of my time in Kingston, and then this was from a live stream, which is so funny because I did this live stream because I wanted to use more red, and again both of these are gouache. I just noticed that in my palette I was replacing all my other colors, but the red was untouched, so I picked a reference photo that had a lot of red in it, and then when I tried to do it in the live stream it looked like the house was on fire, so then I actually had to go on top and use up a whole bunch of greens to try and like calm everything down. So bittersweet achievement. And then this painting, for the life of me, I just can't remember. Like I can't remember why I did it. I can't remember when I did it. It's not from a reference. And this was based on a Turkish restaurant that I went. I just saw some really pretty lights and I took a picture and then painted it later on. This is from Kew Garden. So this was done with watercolor, but because it started raining it kind of ruined it, and in two minds. Part of me is like, this like effect almost looked like, you know, like a old Roman painting kind of thing. Is actually not that bad, and the other part of me feels like I should just paint over it. I don't know, I've kind of left it. Brings back memories. And then this was done with the Kuretake Gansai Tanbai watercolors, which again I really enjoyed, and I did it during a live stream. And this I used differently than I normally would because I don't normally layer and I don't normally use it thickly. When you lay it thick it almost has a sheen to it. It doesn't bother me, but it was something that I wanted to see, so I laid it on thick during the live stream to see it. And again, that was really fun. Then these two are based on videos that I did for my Ko-fi members. These two is funny because I really love these paintings. I think they are so cute and I would want to do them bigger. And I honestly did it because I kind of felt like I hadn't painted or created anything for myself in so long. And I just kind of felt like because I have limited time to create or to paint, it almost feels like anytime I paint, it should be for YouTube. It should be for a useful purpose, because if I don't do that, then I may not have time to actually create anything, which would mean I would not have a video. It kind of started becoming a little bit of an issue in terms of I wasn't creating as much because I kind of felt like, oh, if I need to create, then I need to record it. So do I have the strength to get up and set up everything to record? And if the answer is no, then I won't create. But this was kind of me stepping outside that and just painting it. And when I finished it, I was like, damn it, these paintings are beautiful. It should have been a video. But I enjoyed the process of just watching TV and painting this. So that's the long-winded story behind this. And then these two are watercolor paintings that I did based on an art challenge that I'm doing on Ko-fi. And then this was me just playing around. And then this is a little experiment that I did that I talked about on Ko-fi, which was basically trying to mix gouache with watercolor to see if that meant that I could make more gouache. So if I added white gouache to my watercolors, how could I create successful paintings using it? And this was basically talking through my findings, my experiment. And it was just me messing around initially, but I learned so many valuable lessons that I actually made a post about it. Almost finished. 3 years in the making. It's insane. And then in the back, I just have a few paintings and drawings that I did more recently. I made these 3 cards. Are they not adorable? I did these paintings, and these are on the, which way is up? This way. The Etcher 100% cotton watercolor postcards. I mean, this right here is my favorite. And I also used their golden watercolors, which you can see shimmering there. And of course, the paint that I use that you will see referenced over and over and over again is the Roman Schmall watercolor paints, and I love them. Then we have these. So this is the Paul Rubens 100% cotton watercolor block. It comes in A5 size and it has 20 sheets. And I bought it because I wanted to compare the 100% cotton to their 50% cotton to see which I like. Oddly enough, I didn't like the 100% cotton as much, and thus I decided to do this series because I wanted to just use it up. I go into more detail as to why I created this series, how I created it, as well as showing videos of me painting this in a separate video. But long story short, this series was pretty much painted in one sitting, and it was after a prolonged period of time of me not painting anything because I wanted everything to kind of be productive. And this was just me tossing that to the side and just deciding that I was going to paint whatever I wanted until I was happy and satisfied. And I thought that would be one painting, maybe 2, but it just ended up being 12 paintings of me sitting, relaxing and going with it, and I absolutely loved it. And that's why when I look at this, I just smile. And again, this was done with the Roman Schmall watercolors on the Paul Rubens 100% cotton watercolor paper. I ended up loving this so much that I actually created a digital calendar for my Ko-fi members featuring the artwork, and I'll link it down below for you. And then this isn't part of the series. This was me comparing. I had to go back to the Amazon listing to try and figure out what I had bought. So I hope that it's correct. But in the end, I was just looking at the two and trying to figure out which one behaved in a way that I enjoyed more. This is 50%. This is 100%. And I think the other thing was just that the texture on both is quite rough compared to what I am used to. I don't know if you can tell. This one worked a lot nicer, so I wanted to save this for like a nice project. And as I say, this was just me blowing off some steam. I did not realize that it would result in so many paintings. This is 100% cotton watercolor paper by Bao Hong. It's 300 GSM and it's a block, which means that it's glued on all 4 sides. And I created these pieces of art and I love them. Let me show you. This was the first piece that I created. Did this as part of a painting for my Ko-fi art challenge, and this was like me interpreting the Ko-fi art challenge, and I've made a whole real-time video highlighting how I did it, why I did it, etc. Based on that, I started feeling so inspired that I then did a live stream, and during that live stream I created these two pieces of art as well. So super moody, definitely different from what I had done before, and it is these three pieces that then inspired the series that we looked at, where I had the 12 florals. I think from this it then became evident that I kind of had the 100% cotton watercolor bug. Like, I could see why people used it. Most of the art that I've created has actually been on loose sheets. Most of things aren't dated, so these are the ones that I have found that are dated that I want to just highlight very quickly so that we could see. Using Roman Schmall watercolors and making notes. Again, Roman Schmall watercolors. One of the key things that I was doing here is the paint is the same, but the paper is different. And I just wanted to be able to see the differences between 100% cotton watercolor paper and cellulose watercolor paper. One of the stark differences for me is just the blooms and the harsh edges and the blending. It's just so completely different when I compare it to 100% cotton watercolor paper. And this is the Bao Hong paper. And even though I didn't make notes, oh, I did on the back. There we go. You can just tell. I can just tell. And it took me forever to actually realize that. But thank God 2022 is the year that I realized that I do actually love 100% cotton watercolor paper. Then this is Winsor & Newton gouache. Just experimenting doing gouache florals on a live stream. The question was, why don't I like doing gouache florals? And the answer is I don't know, because I like the look of them, but I think it's just that I'm not patient enough to be doing multiple layers when it comes to the florals. Thus, I don't tend to enjoy it as much. Then this is again from a live stream. I love this because this was actually based on a suggestion of someone. Mixing these colors together is something that I would never think of, were it not for the fact that someone said, oh, these are my favorite colors, how about you mix them together? And I did, to see what would happen. I wasn't optimistic of the results, but it worked. Like, I really, really, really like it. I did a lot of painting in that live stream. So during that live stream, I also used the Flower Fire Supervision watercolors as per Miss Ebony's request to do florals, just so that we could see them shimmer and shine. Then again, some florals, and this is on cellulose paper. But look at the granulation on that. Like, that right there is why Mineral Violet has made a name for itself. Beautiful. Look at that granulation. It's honestly so stunning. Again, these are all Roman Schmall colors. This right here, this here is, I think, what made me fall in love with 100% cotton watercolor paper. Just the blending, the beautiful, stunning blending that happens was just unreal. Then this is quite different for me, but I really wanted to practice doing portraits. It was actually one of my goals for this year, and I just didn't. And this is based on a video that I'll link for you, where I was basically testing out different papers to see which one is best for gouache. And I go into it in more detail and highlight the results and the different types of painting, because my opinion actually changes from when I just do like swatches and mixing on here. I had one opinion, and then when I did an actual painting, my opinion changed again. So I'll link that for you. Can't really tell you what was going on here, apart from the fact that this is 100% cotton watercolor paper. So here I was experimenting with Holbein watercolors and Core watercolors, and here as well. So all these paintings are from live streams that I have done over the past year. Look at the granulation. Just look at, from the Mineral Violet to the Ocean Blue is just stunning. These are Roman Schmall watercolors. It's so funny because my goal for this year was to do 3 live streams, to try it enough to know whether I like it or don't like it, and then like only quit it once I've done at least 3. And I think I've done 18. Then this was actually based on a challenge that I did with Creating Cute Art. So we did an art telephone challenge. Creating Cute Art used a painting that I had created as a reference photo to do her own portrait, and then I used that portrait that she has painted as my reference to create my portrait. You are more than welcome, in fact encouraged, very much encouraged to take part. But it's so funny because Like, honestly, I had such a good time doing this challenge with her. I had such a good time, like, even to do the reveals was just such a really, really fun thing to do. And I'll link the video for you, but I definitely encourage you to take part in it because it's a lot of fun. This is the final one that I created while I was waiting for her to come on the call because I'd got the time difference wrong. This was the second one that I had actually created that I was going to show her. And then this is the first one that I created and I just didn't really like. So I was going to show her anyway, but it wasn't like my favorite. It was very different. Like, I wanted to try and use my imagination, and I feel like I did use my imagination in this one. It just didn't quite go the way that I wanted. And then I tried again with this one, and I was much happier with this one. I felt like I did try to bring in elements of my imagination by, you know, giving a stethoscope and a paintbrush. And it wasn't initially meant to be like me or represent me or anything like that. It's not a self-portrait. However, my sister had made a joke that I had given her my nose and that she looked like me. And then I was like, oh, I might as well carry that forward, and that's how we ended up here. And I just loved like her hair, and I loved the details in this. But then, you know, when you're like, I started getting nervous and I kind of started thinking like, oh my gosh, she's done all this beautiful artwork. I just started feeling the pressure an hour before it was time to start. So while I waited for her to come, I created this, and this is my favorite, and this is gouache. And I don't know why I used gouache. I don't know why I used this color scheme. I don't know why I changed everything the way that I changed it, but from the circle that we see to the background to her skin to the details, I just loved how this piece turned out. So it just goes to show, one, it's fun to do art with friends, and two, you should experiment. Then this live stream, most definitely live stream. I can't tell you why I did this. I can just tell you that it was from a live stream, and again another live stream. This may have been just me, but I feel no, this was a live stream as well, because I remember seeing the heart when I looked up on the camera, and I was like, huh, unintentional but nice. And again, live stream, Roman Schmore. And then at this point I started making like color notes, which I really like. Yeah, I just think it complements the artwork as a whole, and it means that when I look back I can actually tell what I used, why I used, and how it worked. At the moment obviously it's all fresh, but the more you create, the harder I find it is to remember everything. So as you can see, all these paintings have been done with a Roman Schmore. And if you look back on my live streams, you will see that Roman Schmore is featured heavily. You may remember I told you I made this using a limited palette, and this was the limited color palette that I used to create this. But what I found even more impressive was that this limited palette is also what I used to create this, and this was for an art challenge for my Ko-fi members. Done a video for them highlighting not only how I created it but why I created it, like the story and the kind of thoughts behind it. And this is so interesting because I feel like my artwork doesn't always necessarily have like a deep meaning for me in terms of like why I created it, but this one certainly did. Irrespective of that, it was just so fun to use a limited color palette to create something completely different, like something so bright to create something relatively moody. Working on creating colors and color mixing and the whole thing was just super fun. So definitely encourage you to try out using limited color palettes and seeing what art you can create. And certainly if you want to see the real-time video of this and you want to know more information about that, then consider joining my Ko-fi. One of the Ko-fi art challenges that I had was focused on painting snow, and thus I created these pieces on Saunders waterfed 100% cotton watercolor paper, and I actually used a reference from Sarah Byrne's studio to do the painting, which is on the right, and I thoroughly enjoyed the process. If for some reason you haven't heard of Sarah Byrne's studio, you haven't checked out her YouTube, then definitely be sure to do so. You will not be disappointed, especially if you love landscapes, gouache and watercolor. I love creating art outdoors, but I also love creating art from the comfort of my own home. So I combine the best of both worlds by painting, drawing or sketching beautiful landmarks from all over the world while at home. And I use that as an opportunity to experiment as well as to showcase some of my favorite Pentel art supplies, to create these different pieces and to kind of push myself outside my comfort zone. So I'll link that video for you as well. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. This video I feel like is going to be for my hardcore MVPs. Why? Because I just really enjoyed chatting with you about my art. Before creating this video and looking back on all the art that I'd created, I was kind of feeling like I hadn't created enough. I don't know who or what I was comparing myself to, but honestly, looking through the art that I've created over the past 2 videos, and I'll link the first one for you if you haven't seen it, has been super inspiring. So I implore you to try doing the same. Do sketchbook tours, see how far you've come, see things that you've experimented with, that you forgot about, that you want to try again, and just have a really good time. If you are still watching, then you are most definitely a real MVP, and I really appreciate you. But I hope that you have enjoyed having an insight into the art that I created this year, why I created it, and let me know that you are still watching by telling me what you are planning on focusing on creating in the near future. As I've mentioned, this is kind of like part 2 of my sketchbook tour, and if you want to watch part 1 where I go through all the art that I create on location and on holidays, then be sure to check that. That's coming up next. If you want to see all the favorite art supplies that I have used in creating this art and that actually inspired this video, then also be sure to check this video that comes up next. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye. Apparently I keep putting everything upside down. 100% watercolor paper. Did I write it down? No. Where essentially she painted a painting. She painted a portrait. How am I going to explain now? Where essentially